Camp Susupe, Saipan, the 18th of July 1944. The humid air clung to the skin of the prisoners like a second layer as the sun began to sink behind the palm trees. Inside one of the makeshift barracks, Aiko Tanaka, a young Japanese mother clutching her newborn, tried to quiet her trembling hands. The baby, wrapped in a thin cloth, slept in her arms despite the chatter of scared voices surrounding them. Rumors had swept the entire camp that afternoon. Whispers that the American soldiers, the GIs, would seize children from their mothers. No one knew where the rumor started, but it spread like fire. Some women cried. Others held their babies tight, refusing to let them sleep on the mats in fear a guard might appear. Aiko kept her eyes fixed on the entrance. Her heart raced with every step she heard outside. She had given birth only 4 days earlier, with nothing but a blanket and the help of 2 women. She was exhausted, hungry, and overwhelmed, yet nothing frightened her more than the thought of her baby being taken. From outside, footsteps approached. The wooden door creaked open, revealing an American officer. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with soft gray eyes that did not match the image of cruelty the prisoners imagined. His name tag read Lieutenant Daniel Hartman. The barrack went silent. Aiko instinctively tightened her hold on her infant, turning her body to shield him. Her breath caught in her throat. Daniel raised his hands slowly, a gesture meant to calm. "It's all right," he said, speaking gently. "I'm here on routine rounds. No one is taking your children." But the women stared back with a mix of disbelief and terror. Aiko felt a knot tighten in her stomach. Words were too easy. Rumors had roots, fears had teeth. Daniel's eyes landed on Aiko and her newborn. He noticed the fear in her posture. He lowered his voice. "Ma'am, what's your name?" She didn't answer. She just clutched the baby, her knuckles white. Daniel nodded, realizing words alone were not enough. "Please," he repeated softly, "your babies are safe." But the silence remained unbroken, and the rumors continued to cling to the air like smoke. Later that night, Aiko lay awake, staring at her sleeping child. She replayed the officer's expression, gentle, sincere, but fear outweighed reason. If the Americans wanted her baby, what would stop them? She kissed the baby's forehead, whispering a shaky promise that she would never let him go. She didn't sleep at all, even as the moon passed overhead and dawn crept toward camp. Aiko didn't know what awaited her the next day. She didn't know that the truth was nothing like the rumors. And she didn't know that one GI in particular was about to give her something she would never forget, and never expect. The next morning, camp activities surged before sunrise. GIs walked between the barracks, delivering water barrels and checking supply lists. Nobody knew what they were planning, and the rumors only intensified the tension. Aiko stood near the corner of the barrack, rocking her infant. Her friend, Hanasato, leaned close and whispered, "They're preparing something. I heard one of the guards say we'll be lined up today." Aiko swallowed hard. Her body felt weak, and her hands shook, not from exhaustion, but from fear. She imagined GIs pulling babies from their mothers' arms and carrying them away. Outside, Lieutenant Daniel Hartman reviewed a clipboard with another soldier, Corporal James Miller, a young man with a freckled face and a nervous smile. James noticed the anxious eyes watching them through the wooden slats. "They're terrified of us, sir," he said quietly. Daniel nodded. "We need to show them we're not here to harm anyone." As the sun fully rose, Daniel approached the barrack with James at his side. They entered slowly, removing their helmets as a sign of respect. The prisoners tensed instantly. Aiko felt her heartbeat hammer against her ribs. She held her baby so tightly he began to fuss. Daniel stepped forward. His voice was calm, measured. "We're doing an inspection today," he said. "Nothing will be taken from you. You have my word." Aiko didn't believe him, not yet. The soldiers checked the barracks for damage, distributed rations, and ensured medical supplies were properly stored. But every movement made the women flinch. When Daniel reached Aiko, he knelt slightly so he wouldn't tower over her. "May I see the baby?" he asked gently. Aiko's breath froze. She shook her head immediately and backed away. Daniel didn't push. "It's all right," he said, raising his open palms. "I just want to make sure he's healthy." She didn't move. Daniel exchanged a look with James. They both understood. Fear this deep couldn't be undone in a day. The inspection ended without incident, but the tension remained thick. As the soldiers prepared to leave, Aiko finally spoke, her voice soft and trembling. Why do you want to see the baby?" Daniel turned, surprised by her first spoken words. "So I can help," he said simply. "We're trying to document everyone properly. You deserve to know your child is recognized. No one here is invisible." Aiko didn't understand what he meant, but the sincerity in his tone made her hesitate. James, trying to lighten the moment, waved at the baby. "Hey little guy. You've got some lungs, huh?" For the first time since arriving at the camp, Aiko felt something unexpected, a faint flicker of trust. It was small, fragile. But it was there. That evening, the newborn's cries pierced the silence of the barack. Aiko's baby wouldn't stop wailing. His tiny face was red, his arms thrashing. Aiko tried everything, rocking, breastfeeding, whispering, but nothing soothed him. The other women grew concerned. Hannah placed a hand on Aiko's shoulder. "He's not well. Maybe it's a fever." Aiko felt panic rise in her chest. She couldn't lose him, not after surviving the bombings, the escape, the camp. She rushed outside, desperate for help. The guard on duty called Daniel immediately. Within minutes, Lieutenant Hartman arrived, running toward the barack with a medical kit he requisitioned earlier. James followed, slightly out of breath. Daniel approached Aiko carefully. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to examine the baby. This time, after a moment of hesitation, she nodded. Daniel inspected the infant with gentle hands. "He's dehydrated," he said. "He needs clean water and rest. He'll be all right, but we must help him now." Aiko exhaled shakily, relief flooding her eyes. Daniel prepared a small mixture of clean water and dissolved rationed salts. Aiko watched him feed it to the baby with careful precision. The crying slowed. The baby's breathing steadied. Aiko covered her mouth, tears of gratitude filling her eyes. Thank you," she whispered. James smiled warmly. "Tough little guy you've got there." Daniel handed Aiko the rest of the mixture. "Give him this every 2 hours. If you need anything, come to us." Aiko nodded, tears still falling. I thought you would take him." Daniel's expression softened deeply. "We're soldiers, not monsters." Silence fell between them, an understanding silently forming. As Daniel and James walked away, James murmured, "Sir, they really think we're capable of taking babies?" Daniel sighed. "Fear makes people believe terrible things. All we can do is try to replace fear with truth." That night, Aiko held her baby close, not from fear, but from overwhelming relief. Her view of the Americans, especially Lieutenant Hartman, had shifted. She no longer saw them only as the enemy. She saw human beings. And one of them had just saved her child. The next morning, Daniel returned to check on the baby. He stood at the barack entrance, helmet tucked under his arm. "How is he?" he asked. Aiko smiled shyly. "Better, sleeping now." Daniel felt something lift off his chest. He nodded toward the outside. "I need to show you something." Hesitant but curious, Aiko handed the baby to Hannah and stepped out. Daniel led her a short distance to a wooden table near the administrative tent. A single sheet of paper lay on it. Aiko didn't understand at first. She looked from the paper to Daniel, confused. "It's for your son," Daniel explained. "A formal birth certificate. With his name recorded and his mother listed. He deserves an identity, even in war." Aiko froze. A birth certificate? Her eyes widened, tears forming before she could stop them. She had fled her village with nothing. Her baby had been born in chaos, without a doctor, without a proper record, without anything. She had thought his existence might vanish into wartime shadows. But here, on this simple paper, was proof he lived. Proof he had a future. Proof someone valued him enough to write his name. Aiko covered her mouth, shaking. Why would you do this? Daniel spoke gently. Because he matters. And so do you. Aiko touched the paper with trembling fingers. Her son's name, Kenji Tanaka, was written neatly in English letters. She looked up at Daniel, eyes shining. Thank you, Lieutenant Hartman. I will never forget this. Daniel felt a warmth in his chest he hadn't expected. Call me Daniel. It was the first time Aiko smiled fully since entering the camp. Behind them, James peeked from inside the tent. Told you she'd like it, he whispered to another GI, grinning. For the rest of the day, Aiko kept the birth certificate close to her heart. The fear that once dominated her thoughts slowly melted away. The Americans were no longer just guards. They were protectors. And Daniel was no longer a stranger. He was the man who gave her son a name that the war could not erase. The war continued outside the camp, but inside, something had changed. Aiko walked with confidence. She fed her baby with calm hands. She slept without fear. One afternoon, as the wind blew softly through the palm leaves, Daniel visited once more. He found Aiko sitting outside, rocking Kenji while humming. She looked up and smiled warmly. Daniel. He's doing very well. I'm glad, Daniel said, leaning on the wooden post near her. He's a fighter. Just like his mother. Aiko blushed slightly. I was very afraid before. I believed terrible things about all of you. Daniel nodded. War puts walls between people. But walls aren't impossible to break. Aiko lowered her gaze. You didn't just break them. You destroyed them. Silence followed, but it was a peaceful one. From a distance, James approached with a small wooden box. For you, he said awkwardly. It's not much. Just some soap, cloth, and extra rations for the baby. The guys pitched in. Aiko's eyes widened. Why? You've already done so much. James scratched his head. Well, Kenji's kinda become the camp's unofficial mascot. Daniel smirked. Everyone here wants that kid to grow strong. Aiko held the box gently. Gratitude overwhelmed her. I don't know how to thank you. Daniel stepped closer, his voice low but sincere. Just promise me one thing. She looked up expectantly. Promise me that when this war ends, you'll give Kenji the chance to grow up without fear. Aiko's throat tightened. She nodded, tears welling. I promise. I want him to grow up knowing kindness exists, even in the darkest times. Daniel extended his hand. Aiko hesitated only a moment before placing her hand in his. Their worlds, once separated by uniforms and barbed wire, connected in a single, human touch. She whispered, You gave my son a future. Daniel replied softly, You gave him life. I just wanted to honor it. As the sun dipped over Camp Susupe, Aiko looked down at her sleeping baby. For the first time since the war began, hope didn't feel like a distant dream. It felt real. It felt possible. Because kindness, even in war, could change everything. And the birth certificate tucked safely against her heart was proof of that forever.